What is the difference between pre-functional and functional stages of cementum formation? So, in pre-functional stages of cementum formation, the main types of cementum are formed. Basically, that's the pre-functional developmental stages of cementum. So, pre-functional stage refers to formation of main cementum varieties that occur during pre-functional stage, and refers to formation of main cementum varieties during root development. Yeah. So, what is the process by which cementoblast? What is the process by which cementoblast deposit collagen onto the dendin matrix? The process by which cementoblast deposit collagen onto the dendin matrix is actually caused by mineralization. Mineralization, permitting the intermingling of fibers of these two tissues. So cementoblast deposit collagen onto the dendin matrix by the process of mineralization, and allowing the intermingling of and permitting or allowing the intermingling of fibers of these two tissues at the future dendinocemental junction. So, what is the role of non-collagenous proteins in the formation of cementum? So, non-collagenous proteins are there. So, So, non-collagenous proteins are deposited into spaces between the non-collagenous proteins. So, what is the role of non-collagenous matrix proteins in the formation of cementum? So, non-collagenous proteins are deposited into spaces. So, non-collagenous proteins are deposited into places between the fibers and play a significant role in. So, non-collagenous proteins. Okay. Non-collagenous proteins are deposited into places between the fibers, okay, and play an important role in mineralization. Okay. What initiates the mineralization of cementum? Maybe like stimuli? No. A calcium binding amino acids. So, calcium binding amino acid known as GLA protein and osteocalcin and osteonectin act as nucleating substances to initiate mineralization, and bone sialoprotein promote mineralization, and osteopondin regulate crystal growth. So, what initiates the mineralization of cementum? So, we have something was calcium binding. So, calcium binding amino acids like GLA protein. So, what and all will act as, so three substances will act as nucleating substances and will initiate mineralization. That is, we have osteonectin, osteocalcin and GLA protein. Osteonectin, osteocalcin, GLA protein act as nucleating substances and initiate mineralization, and bone sialoprotein promote mineralization. Bone sialoprotein. Then we have osteopondin. Osteopondin regulate crystal growth. So what initiates the mineralization cementum? So, calcium binding amino acids like GLA protein, osteonectin, osteocalcin act as nuclear substances, initiate mineralization, and bone sialoprotein regulate mineralization, and osteopondin regulate crystal growth. So, what is the possible role of cementoblast released? Possible role of cementoblast released matrix. Matrix. What is the possible role of cementoblast released matrix vesicles in the mineralization initial cementum? So, based on the experimental findings, okay, researchers suggest that during initial cementogenesis, cementoblast release. Okay, so what triggers the mineralization process during initial cementogenesis? We have this osteonectin, osteocalcin, and calcium binding amino acid GLA protein, which act as nucleated substances and initiate mineralization. So calciferous spherules formed by matrix vesicles. What triggers mineralization during mineralization process during initial cementogenesis? Calciferous spherules. We have matrix vesicles are there, and they produce calciferous spherules. Calciferous spherules are formed by matrix vesicles released by cementoblast. Are the things that initiate mineralization during initial process during initial cementogenesis. Okay, how does mineralization advance during cementogenesis? Along collagen fibers without matrix vesicles. How does mineralization advance during cementogenesis? Along collagen fibers without matrix vesicles. So what happens to the cementoblast as cementum formation proceeds? They recede outwards. What happens to cementoblast? They recede outwards, lining the periphery of the. What happens to cementoblast as cementum formation proceeds? They recede outward, lining the periphery of the outer surface of the. They recede outward, lining the periphery of the outer surface of the. They recede outward, lining the they recede what do they do? They recede outward, lining the periphery of the outer surface of cementum. So what is the layer? What is the layer of cementum seen? Cementoid. What is the layer of cementoid seen? Lining the mineralized cementum. What is the layer of cementoid seen? Lining the mineralized cementum at the inner aspect of. What is the layer of cementoid seen? Lining the mineralized cementum at the inner aspect of cementoblast layer. A layer of cementoid that is less distinct or even absent. A layer of cementum that is less distinct or even a layer of cementum which is very less distinct and even absent in relation to SLS cementum is the layer of cementoid. A layer of cementoid that is seen less distinct and even absent in relation to SLS cementum is the layer of cementoid that is seen lining the mineralized cementum in the inner aspect of cementoblast layer. What happens in a few what happens when a few cementoblasts get entrapped in cementum matrix? They remain in the mineralized cementum in spaces So what happens when cementoblast? What happens when cementoblast get entrapped in spaces, entrapped in cementometrics? Yeah, so they remain entrapped in mineralized cementum in spaces called lacunae. Yeah. So what is cellular cementum? Cementum formed when the rate of formation of cementum is. So what is cellular cementum? Cementum formed when the rate of formation of cementum is faster, and a few cementoblasts get entrapped in cementometrics, that is called cellular cementum. So cementum formed when the rate of formation of cementum is very faster, and few cementoblasts get entrapped in cementometrics. That is called as the cellular cementum. Okay. What is the difference between pre-functional and functional stages of cementum formation? So during pre-functional stages of cementum formation, major cementum varieties are formed. Pre-functional development stage. In pre-functional stage, the first formation of main cementum varieties that occur during root development. So what are two types of cementum based on presence or absence? Select maybe cellular and acellular. Yeah. So two types of cementum based on the presence and absence, that is cellular and acellular cementum. What is the portion of principal fibers embedded in cementum called Sharpie's fibers? So what is the rate of formation of cellular cementum compared to other types of cementum? Like it will be very fast. The rate of formation of cellular cementum compared to other types of cementum is faster. What is the original cementoblast according to traditional hypothesis? Maybe like ectomesenchymal, undifferentiated ectomesenchymal cells. Differentiation of mesenchymal cells of dental follicle. Okay, this. What is the origin of when I talk about origin of a cementoblast? It is by differentiation of. It is formed by differentiation of mesenchymal cells of differentiation. The cementoblasts. Cementoblasts are formed by according to traditional hypothesis. Cementoblasts are formed by mesenchymal cells of the dental follicle, but differentiation of these mesenchymal cells. What is the process where cementoblasts deposit collagen in dentin matrix? They deposit cementoblasts secrete collagen onto the dentin matrix by process of mineralization, and that permits the intermixing of fibers of the two. Of the two tissues at the future dentino-enamel junction. Okay. And they permit intermixing or intermingling of fibers of the two tissues at the future dentino-cemental junction. At the future dentino-cemental junction. So what is the alternative hypothesis for origin of what is the alternative hypothesis for origin of cementoblast? Epithelial mesenchymal transformation of Hedwig's epithelial root sheath cells. So what is the alternative? What is the alternative hypothesis? What? Okay, what is the alternative? So what is the alternative. What is the alternative hypothesis of origin of cementoblast? So epithelial mesenchymal transformation of epithelial. So epithelial mesenchymal transformation of Hedwig's epithelial root sheath, hers. What is the role of non-collagenous matrix proteins in the formation of cementum? Present between the fibers, initial mineralization, something like that. Non-collagenous proteins and their role in formation of cementum. Non-collagenous proteins are deposited in the spaces between the fibers and play a significant role in mineralization. They have got a significant role. So non-collagenous proteins are deposited into spaces between fibers and play a significant role in play a significant role in mineralization. What are the two types of cementoblasts according to alternative hypothesis? So what are the two types of cementoblasts based on alternative hypothesis? Cells derived from Hedwig's epithelial root sheath and cells derived from dental follicle. So what is the two types of cementoblasts based on alternative hypothesis? Cells derived from hers and cells derived from dental follicle. What initiates the mineralization of cementum? Cementum mineralization is initiated by what? By some proteins. So calcium binding amino acid GLA protein, osteonectin, osteocalcin act as nucleating substances and initiate mineralization, and bone sialoprotein promote mineralization, and osteopondin regulate crystal growth. How does mineralization advance during cementogenesis? Now, how does mineralization advance in during cementogenesis? Along collagen fibers. So mineralization advance along collagen fibers without matrix vesicles during proceed. So mineralization advance along collagen fibers without matrix vesicles in along collagen fibers without matrix vesicles during cementogenesis. Also mineralization advance. So what triggers the mineralization process during initial cementogenesis? So you have cementoblast will calciferous spirules formed by matrix vesicles released by cementoblast initiate mineralization process during. So what triggers the initial mineralization during initial cementogenesis? So calciferous spirules formed by matrix vesicles released by cementoblast. So calciferous spirules formed by matrix vesicles released by cementoblast initiate mineralization during initial cementogenesis. What happens to the cementoblast as cementum formation proceeds? What happens to the cementoblast? They actually recede outward and occupy the outer border of mineralized cementum. That's it. So they recede outward, lining the periphery of the outer surface of the cementum. What happens to cementum blast as cementum formation proceeds? They recede outward and occupy the periphery of and lining the periphery of outer surface of cementum, and lining the periphery of outer surface of cementum. So what is the difference between two types of cementoblast in So what is the difference between two types of cementoblast in terms of receptors expressed on cell surface and their reaction to signal? What are the two types of cementum based on the in terms of receptors expressed on cell surface and their reaction to signaling? So there are different different types of cementum based on the expression of receptors on the periphery in terms of receptors expressing on the cell surface. So there are different types of cementum based on receptors expressing on the outer surface, receptors expressing on the cell surface and their reaction to signaling. Receptors expressing on the cell surface and the reaction to signaling. So what is the layer of cementoid seen lining the mineralized cementum with the inner aspect of so the cementoid seen lining the inner aspect of cementoid seen lining the mineralized cementum, the inner aspect of cementoblast layer is less distinct and even absent in comparison to cellular cementum. So cementoid is seen lining the inner aspect of mineralized cementum. So cementum seen lining the mineralized cementum at the inner aspect of cementoblast layer. So cementum seen lining the mineralized cementum at the inner aspect of cementoblast layer is very less distinct and even absent in comparison to cellular layer cementum. What is the difference between pre-functional and functional stages of cementum? Pre-functional stages, major cementum varieties are formed during root development. So what happens when a few cementoblasts get entrapped in the cementoblast layer? They remain in the mineralized cementum in spaces called lacunae. So what is cellular cementum? Cellular cementum contain cementoblast embedded in them. That is cellular cementum, and they are formed very fast. And very few cementoblasts are present in them, get embedded in the cementum matrix. So the rate of cementum formed when the rate of formation of cementum is faster and few cementoblasts get entrapped in cementum matrix. That is your cementoblast formed when the rate of formation of cementum is very fast and few cementoblasts get entrapped in cementum matrix. So what is the difference between cementoblasts derived from dental follicle and those derived from matrix? Cementoblasts derived from dental follicle express the receptor for PTH and extracellular proteins osteopondin. Cementoblasts derived from dental follicle express the receptors for PTH and extracellular proteins osteopondin, osteocalcin, while those derived from Hedwig's epithelial root sheath do not express the receptor for PTH and only express osteopondin and partial osteoblastic phenotype. So what is the difference between cementoblast derived from dental follicle and Hedwig's? So those derived from the Hedwig's epithelial root sheath express the receptors for PTH and the extracellular substances like osteopondin and osteocalcin. While those which one derived from dental follicle. So the cementoblast derived from the dental follicle express receptors for PTH. Those derived from the herbs do not express the receptors for PTH and express osteo and express osteopondin and partially osteoblastic phenotype. So what is the origin? What is the origin? So what is the origin of cementoblast according to traditional phenotypes? They are actually derived from dental mesenchymal cells of two germ. You have epithelial mesenchymal cells, dental follicle epithelial mesenchymal cells. Differentiation. So cementoblast is formed by traditional hypothesis is by differentiation of mesenchymal cells of dental follicle. So what is the process of cementoblast? Cementoblast deposit collagen. They deposit collagen by process of by the process of mineralization, and they allow intermingling of fibers of the two types, and they allow intermingling of fibers of the two types. At future dendinocemental releasing depositing collagen cementum. Dentin matrix, future cemento-dental junction. What is the alternate hypothesis for origin? So it is actually derived from epithelial Hedwig's epithelial mesenchymal cells of Hedwig's epithelial root sheath. Epithelial mesenchymal transformation of Hedwig's epithelial root sheath cells. So what is the role of non-collagenous proteins in the formation of cementum? So we have non-collagenous proteins. We have the osteopondin, osteopondin. So we have osteopondin, osteocalcin. So what is the role of non-collagenous matrix proteins in formation of cementum? What is the role of non-collagenous matrix proteins in cementum formation? Non-collagenous proteins. Non-collagenous matrix proteins are deposited in spaces between the fibers and play a significant role. So non-collagenous proteins are deposited into 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 spaces between the fibers and play a significant role in mineralization. So what is the role of a non-collagenous matrix proteins in formation of cementum? So non-collagenous, okay, non-collagenous matrix proteins are deposited into spaces between the fibers and play a significant role in mineralization. So what are the two types of cementoblasts? What are the two types of cementoblasts identified according to alternative hypothesis? So cementoblasts derived from dental follicle, cementoblasts derived from Hedwig's epithelial root sheath. So what initiates the mineralization of cementum? The initial mineralization of cementum during initial cementogenesis is actually triggered by what? So what initiates the mineralization of cementum? Calcium binding amino acids. So so what initiates the mineralization of cementum? So calcium binding amino acids known as GLA protein and osteocalcin osteonectin act as so what initiates the mineralization during what initiates mineralization cementum? So we have calcium binding amino protein, GLA protein, and we have osteonectin and osteocalcin act as nucleotide substances to initiate mineralization, and bone cyanoprotein actually promote mineralization, and osteopondin regulate the crystal growth. So what is mineralization? How does mineralization advance? How does mineralization advance during cementogenesis? Cementoblast advance. Cementoblast like mineralization advance along cementum fibril without what? Without matrix vesicles during cementogenesis. Along collagen fibers without matrix vesicles. What triggers the mineralization? What triggers the mineralization during initial cementogenesis? So what triggers the mineralization during initial cementogenesis? So calciferous spherules formed by matrix vesicles. So calciferous spherules formed by matrix vesicles released by cementoblast to initiate mineralization during triggers mineralization during initial cementogenesis. So calciferous spherules. So we have calciferous spherules. Calciferous So we have calciferous spherules formed by matrix vesicles released. So calciferous spherules released by matrix calciferous spherules released by matrix calciferous spherules formed by matrix vesicles released by cementoblast initiates mineralization during initial cementogenesis. what calciferous spirules formed by matrix vesicles released by cementoblast. What is the difference between two types of cementoblast in terms of receptors expressed on the cell surface and their two types of cementoblast in terms of receptors expressed on cell surface and their reaction to signaling. What are the two types of? What are the two? So based on uh, based on the expressing of receptors on the cell surface, and the so based on the expression of receptors on cell surface and their response to signaling, there are two different types of cementum. What happens to cementoblast as cementum formation proceeds? What happens to cementoblast? So what happens to cementoblast as cementum formation proceeds? They recede outwards and they occupies the periphery of the align the periphery of the outer surface of cementum. So what happens to cementoblast during cementogenesis? So the cementoblast recede outward and they line the periphery of the outer surface of cementum. What is cellular cementum? So we have cellular cementum have when the rate of formation of cementum is fast and few cementoblasts are embedded in the cementum matrix. What is the original cementoblast according to traditional hypothesis? It is actually derived from the dental follicle of. So we have mesenchymal cells of a dental follicle. Suggest about epithelial mesenchymal epithelial mesenchymal transformation in Hedwig's epithelial root sheath. So investigation by Yamamoto et al. So investigation by Yamamoto et al. Suggest about epithelial So what is the difference between